So I just wanted to share with you some really quick, simple ways that you can connect with your students, whether you're in person, hybrid, or fully virtual. So here we go. So this first one is my small talk, calendar talk routine just for Google Slides. And it's set up to be kind of multi-level and differentiated, but to grow with your students throughout the year. So I might start with just a few options and then gradually give them more or change up the vocab, give them even more options. And this just kind of shifts with us throughout the year. Then I like to do calendar talk because, days and weeks and months and date and all that stuff. But more importantly for connecting with your students is is today special? Let's talk about what you have going on today, even if it's just yeah, I get to go to the dentist, or maybe it's yeah, I get to go to the orthodontist and get my braces off. So just to kind of check in with them every day at the start of class. Another option for the start of class check-in, some days I really like doing the Google Slides as a whole class and checking in with everybody all at once. But sometimes I find I get more responses if I do this in a more individualized manner. So I also have a Google form that's set up really similarly, right? There's just a few options, or I could delete this and give them the one that's got a lot of vocab support. So it's, again, built to kind of grow with my students as we go throughout the year and giving them some vocab support. Or I just have the open-ended, maybe they're ready for just telling me ¿Cómo estás? And just checking in. Sometimes I throw in an English option tell me how you are. What do you need to tell me? What's going on? Just another way to get to connect with them. And then same thing, I do calendar talk. What day is today? What was yesterday? What's tomorrow going to be? Different levels of support and scaffolding depending on where we are in the year and, who my students are. Talk to me about your day. Is it special? What's going on? Again, just giving them that opportunity to share really helps to build that classroom community and that connection. Weekend chat is another fantastic option to get to connect with your students because you're just spending time talking about their personal lives. What are you going to do? What did you do? What's going on? Again, I set this up to kind of grow with my students. So we might start with just yes or no. Did you do this thing? Did you not do this thing? And then we'll move into either or kind of questions. Did you do this or did you do this? Sometimes I give them some options for kind of leveling up. So yes, I did this with whom or where or for how long, just to kind of show them how they can put the pieces of the language together in a very supported way. So it allows them to give me more information if they want to and support them so they're not stretching themselves out of the language. And then eventually we grow into more open-ended questions with these vocab supports on the screen. So again, I do this on Fridays before their weekends, but then I also like to do this when they come back just to share, did you actually do what you said you were going to do, or did your plans change, or just tell me about your life. Another option for weekend chat that I really love are these conversation cards, and this is the digital version that I'm showing you. Quick note, I do not do this at the beginning of the year with my ones. This is usually towards the end of the year with my twos because it's a lot of output without as much scaffolding and support as you saw in the other activity. Basically, they click the dice and they roll it, and it gives them, okay, you rolled a 3. And I've done this a couple of ways. Either you roll and you answer the question that you rolled, or you roll and you ask somebody else the question that you rolled. Depends on how good they are at taking turns. Sometimes they only ask one person over and over again, and that's no fun. So they roll, and then they ask, ¿Fuiste a otro estado? And right now, the answer is probably no, but, maybe. So that sort of thing. They just roll and ask each other questions, and there's a whole bunch of different cards for them to talk with each other. I also have a section where you can add your own questions, or you could share this with them and they could create their own questions. Again, this is something I do with upper level students or later in the year where they are more comfortable with outputting without so much support as you might see in those other activities that I shared. So the last routine that I have to share with you is called Persona Especial, or special person. And I probably first heard about this from Bryce Hedstrom. He's kind of the go-to guy for this. But Amy Marshall, I saw her present at the FLAN conference a couple years ago, and she shared a couple tips and tricks that just made it a game changer for me. Before I was this is a good routine. It's kind of useful. And then I took some of the things that she shared with us at that conference, and it was just yes, now I love this routine. So basically you take a student and you pull them up in front of the class, and you can ask for a volunteer, or you can draw a name, or, you know your students for how you want to choose somebody, and you just interview them. Like, tell me about your life. Tell me what's going on. I use this as a way to kind of catch all those topics that I am required to teach for my Spanish one. So like, who are you? Tell me about your family. Tell me about yourself. Where do you live? What do you do? Where are you from? What do you like to do? Kind of those activities and hobbies. But it is a fantastic way to get through all of those things in a very personalized and specific way to connect with your students. And we do one student a week, and then we just, next kid, next kid, next kid. I know some people like to do this as a full unit, so they'll do all of their kids, and they'll do this for like 2 or 3 weeks. At the end, I like to do, this is for a write and discuss. So we take all the information they told us, and we write it up into a paragraph together as a class. And then I just like say, okay, kids, write about this person. And I give them 3 minutes, and I give them all these supports, and I let them write as much as they possibly can about that person. I give my special person a different sheet. So these are all the third person starters. My special person gets a sheet that's got the yo forms on it. So that way they are just writing about themselves, reinforcing the things that they told us, but it winds up being like a little autobiography kind of deal about the things that they like and, where they're from. And it's so good to get to know them. And then I just, how many words did you write? Kind of like a timed writing, but for special person. And then I also do a version B. This includes I call it a class participation option. And just after each question, it has a little graphic organizer for them to talk about, like, okay, what would I say if I were asked this question? What did that person say? And do we have anything in common? And I don't have my students record something for every piece of this, but it's just to kind of keep them on track. And it's a good way to level up and do some comparisons. This came from, who shared this idea? This was a Lang chat idea, the comparisons. Langely, maybe? I'll double check and I'll make sure to link where it came from. But somebody shared that idea in the Lang chat on Twitter. And I just love that it allows for that extra person and that extra comparison. And then we get the no sotras form. So we both like to play sports, or we both like to listen to music, or and then, they're developing that connections together with their classmates. It's just such a great routine. And you can do this in person with one person in front of the class. You can just share your screen with your students and talk through them together. However you want to do this, depending on which setting you're in, it is a wonderful routine to just start to get to know your students. And again, you don't have to do these same questions. I'm just kind of flipping through the slides so you can kind of see how I have it set up. And I've added and tweaked questions based on the required units for my textbook and the various departments that I've worked with. So I make sure that I'm covering like the basic level 1 topics that I need to do. But you could do this with like fun would you rather questions, like random questions about getting to know you. I mean, you're not limited to these kinds of like basic information questions that everybody knows. And the other thing is that if somebody shares like a piece of information about themselves that's really interesting, and you can tell it kind of sparks this interest in your class, sometimes we'll wind up spending, the next 10 minutes talking about a kid's dog instead of really about themselves. But that's okay. We're just building those connections and we're getting to know those kids, and it's all in Spanish. So more input for them. I hope that gives you some ideas for different ways that you can connect with your students, even if you're virtual, and to really just build those connections and relationships that you have. Even though our like classroom and our actual, I don't know, it's weird to say it's like our classes in our classroom because there's no classroom right now, but that sense of community is so important, and it's so hard to develop through the screen. So hopefully it gives you some ideas for things that you can implement in your classroom and, really develop those relationships with your students. So let me know if you have any questions, and I will help you as much as I can.